file types. Understanding file types and naming conventions. So understanding file types and naming conventions. I'm going to say that there are two very broad categories of file types. Okay, so I'm going to start by just basically saying that we have data files and we have program files. Okay, so I'm going to categorize these as data files being the files that the end user creates. Okay, so again, that resume that you created, that word processing homework assignment that you created, that Excel spreadsheet that you created, I would categorize that as data files. Okay, so personal user files I'm categorizing as data. Program files are the files that are stored on your computer when the program is installed. Okay, and I'm literally categorizing that as all of them. Okay, you know, there are certain executable files that exist for every program that you install, but I'm talking about any single file. When I install Microsoft Word, it created a folder for that package, and every file that it's stored in that location, I'm categorizing as a program file. Everyone okay with that? Yes? Very broad categories. Okay, so again, where are they stored? Well, we kind of already looked at that, right? Program files are stored in that program files folder or in the program files x86 folder. I would even categorize your operating system as a program file, so the Windows directory. So again, those folders that we just discussed, the Windows, program files x86, I would say that those are where you'd find your program files. Okay, and your data files would be stored, again, could be on a thumb drive, but if you are just dealing locally with the storage media that's available to you within your operating system, then probably in your documents folder. Okay, within your profile folder, within your documents folder, within your profile area. Okay, so regardless of the category of a file name on a Windows operating system is made up of two parts. Okay, so a file name is made up of two file name and file extension. Okay, so a file name ideally, okay, defines the file's contents. Defines the file's contents. Okay, so if I'm talking about and let me just kind of add here, a file extension defines a file's type. So we'll start with file name. If it's a program file, then actually I'm going to start with data files. Okay, a data file typically is assigned by the user creating it, right? Okay, if you're going to create a resume, you're going to give it a name. Okay, my guess is, my hope is, I should say, that the file's contents are somehow included in the file's name, right? So if it's a resume, I'm not going to call it homework 1, right? Because giving a file a name that describes its contents is going to help you easily determine what's in that file without having to open it, right? Okay, so can I name my files file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, file 5, file 6, file 7? I certainly can. Okay, but what's in each file? So when you're creating a file, ideally you're creating it with a descriptive name. Okay, again, you don't have to, but hopefully you are creating a file with a descriptive name. But you are the person who's saving the file, you are the person who's assigning that file a name. Okay, so file name defines the file's contents, ideally by a user. Program file, the file name for a program file would be established by the developer of that program, right? When I run Notepad, its file name is Notepad. Okay, when I run Microsoft Word, its file name is WinWord. Okay, all one word. So again, depending on the application, the person or the company that developed that product is going to be who establishes that file's name. Okay, so your file name, and again, Notepad clearly identifies what that is. WinWord, Windows Word Processor, kind of, has a descriptive name. So ideally, your file name is descriptive, whether especially you have the control if you created it, but if it's the developer, usually does include somewhat descriptive names in their executables. So that then brings us to a file's extension. Okay, so file name defines the file's contents, either by you if it's a data file, or by the developer if it's a program file. Okay, a file's extension is assigned to the file by a program. Okay, so a data file. Let's talk about a data file first. Okay, a data file. So if I am creating a Microsoft Word document and I call it resume, okay, Microsoft is actually going to add to the end of that file docx. Okay, that's the file's extension. Okay, if I create something in Excel and I call it finances, and it's going to add an extension of .xlxs. SX? Yeah. Okay. And if I am creating a PDF file, it's going to include an extension of .pdf. Are we getting the picture here, guys? If I create a file with Notepad, it's going to put an extension on that file of .txt. Okay, so the file extension of a data file is not something that you control. Okay, I create a word processing document, it automatically adds the appropriate extension to that file. And when I install the program, that's what I refer to it as a registered extension. Is that extension registered on this computer? Okay, if I never installed Microsoft Word on my computer, or if I never installed an Excel spreadsheet program on my computer, then I likely am not going to have .docx or XLSX files, but if I did, they would not necessarily, they wouldn't be able to open in those programs because those programs don't exist. The file extension defines the file's type. And again, on a data file, that's a file that's an extension that you don't really have control over. Okay, the application is going to include it for you. A program file extension is going to be an executable. Okay, when I talk about a program file, I'm talking about the actual application that launches into memory and runs. So when I'm running Microsoft Word, for example, Microsoft Word is named WinWord, okay, and I happen to know that its extension is .exe. Okay, Notepad is also a .exe file. Okay, format is a command we'll cover later in the semester. That's a .com extension. So the extensions that are typically executable extensions are .exe, .com, and that's not like a website.com, that's just an extension on a file, .bat, .cmd. Those are the four most common. If I want to see what other extensions on this computer are in fact categorized as executables on this computer, then there's a variable that can show me that. And I know the variable's name starts with a letter P, so I'm going to take set P. Actually, you know what? I'm going to echo the variable's name because there are so many variables that start with the letter P that the screen gets too busy for me. So I'm going to display it. So remember, if I want to display the value of a variable, I can use the echo command. I know the variable's name is path.ext, and a % before and after, the beginning and at the end of the name. So when I press the enter key here, notice it's showing me a list of extensions on this computer. And these extensions are extensions that are categorized as executables on this system. Okay, so later when we talk more about executing an executable at the command prompt, I'll keep throwing these extensions at you. For the most part, the first four are usually the only ones I mentioned. Those are pretty standard, have been around for quite a few years. These additional extensions will have to do with, may have something to do with other programs that you have installed, Visual Basic scripting, Java scripting, Windows script file, Microsoft Management Console file. So these are all extensions that are categorized on this computer as executables. Question?
What about
.gov is, remember, the .gov is a domain, not a file extension. Okay, so just like .com is a domain, .edu is a domain. So we're talking about internet domains with those. These are not the same. Okay, these are not part of a URL. Okay, they're just an extension on a file that defines the file's type. Okay, other programs, other extensions that you might find that are needed in program files. I already mentioned .dll files. Remember, those are kind of those are important. Those are not. I wouldn't. Those are not executables. They're not data. Okay, but they're definitely needed for certain programs to run. So they're critical in that System32 directory. .dat is the extension. If I look here, you can see that I have, or do I? Yeah, ntuser.dat, ntuser.dat. These are extensions. Those are actually files, registry files. Those are system critical files that are available in your profile folder. .ini, .sys. Those are all extensions that are not considered data files or executable files, but might be extensions on files that are needed for certain programs to actually be able to run on your system. Okay. One last thing before we quit. Okay, and that is, oh, this class ends at 6:40, not 6:45, right? So I guess 6:50. No, it's definitely not 6:50. Okay, I know that. No, it's not 6:50. It's 4 to 6. I have classes that run from 11 to, 9:30 to 10:45. So the 45 and the 40, this class goes until 6:40. Okay. I am just going to cover, so we have just 1 minute, and I am just going to cover one more thing because I'm trying to keep the 4 o'clock class in line with the 9:30 class. 2 file naming conventions. Okay. A naming convention is kind of the rule for establishing a file's name. There are 2 naming conventions. There's 8.3, and that's sometimes referred to as short file names, and then there's long file names. Okay, so 8.3 is a legacy format. When I say legacy, I mean it's old. Okay, so 8.3, back when files could not have names that had more than 8 characters in them. Extensions could not be more than 3 characters long. So that's where the 8.3 came from. The 8 identifies the maximum number of characters that it could exist in the file's name, and the .3 identifies the maximum number of characters that could exist in the file's extension. You were limited. You could only use letters, numbers, and I don't even think there were many special characters that you could use. An underscore and a dash you could use, but you couldn't use, like a space definitely was not supported in the 8.3 format. Okay? Long file names, maximum number of characters in the file's name is 255. I do not recommend using 255 characters in a file name, but if you really wanted to, you could. Okay? So obviously allows for much more descriptive names. Okay, you are very limited with the 8.3 format with coming up with a descriptive name if you only had 8 characters to work with. Much more flexibility with 255. I do not know of any limit as to the extension on the file extensions. Usually, I don't know of any file extension that's more than 4 characters. So you got your .docx, your .html. Those are 4-character extensions. Your .pdf, your .txt are the 3-character extensions. I don't know of any other. There's no such thing as I don't know of any 2-character extensions on files or anything more than 4 characters. Okay, so I don't know of any actual limit. You are allowed special characters in long file names like the space. Obviously, the dot. You can use a dot in a file's name. It will always take the last dot and assume anything after the last dot is the extension. So if I named a file my period file period .txt, it would look at the whatever's after the last period as the file's extension. Okay, so you can use periods in file names. There are special characters that you cannot use. I'm just going to throw them out here. And as we cover more things in this class, you'll see why these characters, they have a particular purpose at the command prompt, therefore they cannot be used as part of a file's name. Okay, so if I tried using a less than sign or a greater than sign or a forward slash or backslash or an asterisk or a question mark or a pipe as part of a file's name, I would not be allowed. Okay, it would give me an error message. Okay, and again, those are simply because those particular characters have a particular purpose at the command prompt, and when we cover each of these characters will be covered this semester, and as we cover them, you'll see why they can't be used as part of a file's name. Okay, so we will quit here. Next week we will pick up from here. So I'll finish lecturing from block 2 next week and very likely stop block 3. Okay, so homework assignment for block 1 was assigned today.